Hey everybody, it's Joel. I'm down at Boom Comics here in Topeka, Kansas. And today I'm going to be answering a very specific question that Joseph has asked, looking for some detail about our rights structure and how we use Creative Commons. Joseph has asked a really good question that doesn't have an easy answer, and so I'm going to talk about how we treat rights and what our intent is in terms of rights. I'm going to talk about the Creative Commons license and what it actually says, and then we're going to see if we can't fuse those two together and answer Joseph's question. So first of all, the way Dryden works, and hopefully I've reiterated this 100 million billion times and everybody knows this, is that we take all of the elements that come out of the stories and games and art that we create, and we place them under Creative Commons. And what that means in practical terms is that anybody else that comes along that likes our universe and wants to write in it is free to do so. And they don't have to, hey, we're getting help in the background. Hi there. And they don't have to buy rights from us. They don't have to pay licensing fees to us. Anything that's in the Dryden universe is considered to be under Creative Commons, and you're free to develop in it. Now, that's with the caveat that whatever you create then has to be under Creative Commons also. Okay, and the sort of understood way that we do that is, or limitation to the way we do that, is that you own that game. It's not cool for me to go in and make a new copy of your game and market it as my game. It's your game. The characters that you created for that game, the environments that you established for that game, that's free and open to anybody, but the game itself is kind of yours. The same with my story. You're absolutely free to use the character. You're absolutely free to use the environment, but you really shouldn't make another copy of my story and call it yours. That's still plagiarism. That's still uncool, right? The same with art. We do definitely sample and copy out of each other's art all the time. But really what you should do is you should take the art samples that are out there and adapt them for your own. And an excellent example of that is the trademarks. I still feel, or I'm sorry, the company logos. I feel like Nigel owns those company logos that we put out on the website. But what he's agreed to do is to let you cut and paste and copy and put it on the sides of buildings and so on and so forth. But that image is actually still his image. In that case, we're never really going to track that back. Did you cut and paste correctly? Did you modify enough? Yeah, that's Nigel's image, but you're very free to use it because it's open under the Creative Commons. And the idea is to allow those of us who are independent and want to stay independent and are in the indie movement and want to stay in the indie movement, a really big universe, and the shared advertising support. We support and promote each other without ever having to sell rights to anybody. And Joseph's question is very interesting. Joseph seems very comfortable with the idea. He's new and just recently approached Dryden. He's very comfortable with the idea that somebody else might use his characters. He'd love to use our characters. He feels very comfortable sharing back and forth like that. But his question is, what happens when somebody takes the text of my book and makes an audio book out of it and puts it on YouTube? He's concerned that a production house, a larger corporation might pick it up and promote it. That's a tough question. That's really a kind of a challenging question, Joseph, and I want to thank you for asking it. The license that we use is the BYSA. It's now in 4.0. We've been using the 3.0 version, but I don't see any reason not to just move to the 4.0. It looks pretty fundamentally the same. And BYSA is the share alike. Anybody else can use it. And BY is you have to give credit. It's the byline. So in a very strict sense, I don't think that the BYSA license allows us to prevent someone else from using our text in a sort of a literal way. I think that if somebody else wanted to use my text, unless their work needs to be a derivative work. It can't actually be my work. But as long as they've modified it sort of significantly, I don't think that we can really stop them from doing that. It is against the intent of Dryden, and I would discourage someone from doing it. And if you came to me and said, hey, this guy just took my book and made an audiobook version, I would send that guy a nastygram and encourage him to comply. But I don't know that that literally we could stop them. I don't think that we could stop them. What I would hope is that that person would approach you and say, hey, I want to do this project to make an audio book out of your book. Let's work together to make it the best, and the two of you could work it out. But the mysterious evil corporation shows up one day and makes an audio book out of your book. I don't know that we could stop them with the licensing structure that we have. I don't actually think it's very much of a concern, and I'll tell you why, is because one of the things that's true about Dryden is that we make a lot less money than we could. Not as a group, but individually we absolutely do that. I have very little control over where my work is going to show up next and who's going to profit off of it next, and I sacrifice a lot of profits in order to do that. I talk a lot about Nick, who's building the role-playing game with Owlman Press. Nick has got samples of my writing. He's got quotes from my writing. He's got characters. And in a sort of greedy man's right structure, I would be trying to figure out how to make him pay for all of those. And I'm not, and I never will, because I'm more interested in the universe and the building of this great opportunity for all of us than I am in profit. I'm glad to make a profit, and I do sell my book. That's cool. But it's sort of the middle path, right? For those of you who are familiar with Buddhism, I'm going to make enough money. It's going to be all right. Nick is doing great things with his game, and I want to work in that big universe, and so I'm not pressing Nick for rights. It's exactly what we don't do, right? It's totally available to Nick. I'm glad that he's doing it. I've told him thank you many times. And I think that to a company that is a sort of a big traditional company, that is a nightmare. They want, when they try to figure out whether or not to invest in a project, not only to know the direct revenue that they're going to make off the sale of the project, but the residual revenue. What are they going to make off of t-shirt sales? What are they going to make off of posters? How much are they going to spend on advertising, et cetera, et cetera? And in our environment, I think it's almost impossible for them to map the profits beyond the immediate product, and even then maybe not very well, because they've got to figure out whether or not the Dryden group, those people who are fans of Dryden, are going to accept them. And frankly, if you got a big company brand name on your product, we're not very interested in working with you. We are the outsiders, and we want to be. And I think that a big company that looked at us would say, hey, I'm going to get in here and I'm going to promote this product, and I'm going to build this product, and then I'm not going to be able to control the revenue stream off of it, and they would stay away from us. So, Joseph, I would love to tell you, hey, we'll just tell them no. And I think that we could try, and I think we could say that it is a violation of our intent for someone to take your book and make just the audiobook that is your book. But we can't really, the way we are structured, have a lot of guarantee that we're going to be successful at stopping them from doing that. But I think that it takes other creatives like us to be able to play the way that we play. And I think that if somebody's interested in your audiobook, they'll send you a text or send you an email and say, dude, I like what you wrote, and I'd like to do an audiobook of it. Let's work something out. I think they would email me and say, hey, can you help me find a cover artist to work on this? I think that this sort of network social group that we've got going is where someone would come from if they wanted to do something derivative with your work. Hope that's a satisfactory answer. I'd love to see what you and your daughter write, and I'd love to work with you to develop it. So if you have any questions or anything else I can answer you, please let me know. The best way to get a hold of me is with at the email address drydenexperiment@yahoo.com. That's DrydenExperiment at Yahoo. And of course, stop by the Dryden Authors and Artists page, which is where we post all of our material. We're also now going gangbusters on the YouTube page. It's called Joel Stottlemyre right now because I can't figure out how to call it Dryden. It's attached to my Google account. It's on my list of things to fix. And I hope that helped you. Thank you very much for joining us. This is Boom. I'm Joel. Have a great evening.